네.
일단은 우리가 이태원 선생님은 그 한국 IT 업계를 취재하고 계시는 이제 언론사 대표시기도 하고,
예.
특히 이제 그 아시아 시장을 그 빅테크 기업 중심으로 해서
네네.
꺼주시면 좋겠어요.
네.
왜 이렇게 하냐면은
꺼주시면 좋겠어요.
예,
소리가 같이 나오니까
예, 알겠습니다.
중복이 돼요. 안
네,
되고요.
알겠습니다.
제가 나오는 건 확인했으니까
예.
걱정하지 마시고
알람이 나와서.
영어로 해주시면 좋겠어요.
예.
예. 그래서 이제 특히 이제 이태호 대표님의 장점은 이제 현장을 주로 가시는데 특히 이제
AI가 거기 많이 나.
예, 최근에 그 대만을 주로 갔다 오셔가지고
예.
그 대만 IT 시장에 대해서 굉장히 많은 식견을 갖고 계세요. 예, 그래서 특히 이제 최근 이제 아세안 지역이 아시아 공이 마찬가지지만
네.
반도체, 그다음에 뭐 데이터 센터, 그다음에 AI 산업에 대해서 후발주자지만 그걸 따라잡겠다는 각 국가들의 의지가 많이 보이고 있기 때문에
네.
특히 이제 우리가 1회 저기 수요 포럼에서 그걸 좀 약간 다룬 적이 있습니다.
예.
특히 이제 이태호 대표님이 그때 했던 얘기 중에 가장 중심적인 얘기는
네.
그 이제 엔비디아와 이제 TSMC의 이제 그 대만 커넥션이었죠. AMD까지 포괄하는. 그래서 이제 대만 화교 커넥션이
네.
있고 이제 거기에 이제 편승하려는 이제 각 아세안 국가들의 뭐 싱가포르든 이제 말레이시아든 인도네시아든
네네.
화교 네트워크가 있다 보니까
네네네.
뭐 그런 움직임에 대해서 좀 말씀해 주셨던 것 같습니다.
네.
최근에 대만 다녀오셨죠?
네, 대만 잘 갔다 왔습니다. 뭐 영어로 언제 얘기해요?
지금 하시면 되죠.
Hi, I went to Taiwan recently.
아, 예. 언제 다녀오셨어요?
Well, was Taipei city government hosted the event called Star Spear Taipei, and I was honored to be one of the keynote speaker event, which is hosted by Taipei Metropolitan Government, and it was, I guess, it was the first week of September.
아, 9월에 가셔서 그 타이완 거버먼트가 주최하는 스타트업 행사였나요? IT 행사였나요?
Well, it was Taipei city government is trying to merge the tech and the cultural things so that many ordinary citizens to be participating in the event. And I was part of the part in tech and startup. So that's why I was there to share about the South Korean startup ecosystem and also some of the insight that I have been looking on the Northeast Asia and around the world.
아, 특히 타이완. 그래서 타이완은 최근이 아니죠. 작년 이제 엔비디아와 AMD 그다음에 TSMC의 붐 이후에 현재 이제 아시아 테크놀로지의 수도 역할을 이제 타이베이가 하고 있죠.
Well, actually, the Jensen Huang of NVIDIA said that Chinese are the PRC is very critical on describing Taiwan as a country, but Jensen said that Taiwan is part of AI, and it's not just a region or certain area. He described it as a country. So, well, this has not happened just in one day as Rome was built. Rome was built in a single day. They have been working a lot. They have been competing against South Korea or other countries during the 70s or 80s, but I think they have been preparing, and also the country has been, if you think about 2008 to 2010, when the Steve Jobs was in the world with us, they saw that Samsung got still some kind of the idea. So you might understand and you might remember the news that the patent war between Samsung and Apple. And one dramatic thing is that the brain of a smartphone is AP. And before the legal dispute between Samsung and Apple, those people were Apple asked Samsung to develop and manufacture their semiconductor for AP. But as you know, that like some says that there is an invisible war in Wall Street, Chinese war in between the investment banking and the retail banking. They thought that Apple thought was the kind of the design or methodology of the AP technology has been linked to the mobile division of Samsung. So dramatically, TSMC got the opportunity to produce the semiconductor, and also they have been focusing more on non-memory semiconductor, which is right now Samsung is trying to focus on. So I think those things has been merged together, and this become the explosion and making world to be more focused on Taiwan. So that's what I thought what's happening around here, especially on that island.
그러니까 2010년 그러니까 우리가 모바일 혁명 이전에는 사실 이제 컴퓨터 중심의 어떤 컴퓨팅 환경이었잖아요. 그 환경에서는 사실 그 미국 중심이고 이제 한국은 이제 메모리 칩을 공급하는 체제였죠. 예.
Yeah, it was sort of something like that. So what I guess is that it was a PC oriented, not mobile, because the data explosion and the mobile centric has been shifted around 2008 because iPhone was firstly launched in 2007. But actually, if you think about the first iPhone, it was impossible to send SMS message each other, and people were writing something like WhatsApp. But because Americans tend to send message each other instead of taking the phone calls. And if you think about that from iPhone 3, which is 3G, which is right now, and the 3GS, and before that it was not that much powerful device, and also there was Windows Mobile, but the Windows Mobile was not that much powerful, but something like adopting Android, and those things were exposing each other, and that made the shift of the internet environment from wired internet, which is based on PCs or desktops, like laptops or PC, the desktops, but that has been shifted to mobile environment, and that's what happened in 2009. And I think Taiwanese got the opportunity to produce their own AP, and this drove eventually to be the Taiwan to be one of that country to get the production of the semiconductor. That's my idea.
이제 AP 얘기를 하셨는데 이제 AP는 모바일에 들어가는 이제 CPU를 말하는 칩이죠. 핵심 칩이라고 할 수 있겠고.
Processor. Yes.
그러니까 이제 2010년 모바일 혁명 이후에 이제 세계 시장이 재편이 됐죠. 이제 애플이 치고 나갔고, 당연히 이제 삼성은 이제 저가는 아니고 중저가 혹은 이제 보편적인 이제 안드로이드 시장의 축을 담당하면서 지난 10년간 애플과 삼성 체제로 이제 경쟁을 해왔죠. 당연히 저는 혹은 많은 한국 사람들은 이제 삼성과 한국이 어떤 그 소위 말하는 그 모바일 시대의 주도권을 잡고 있는 줄 알았죠. 하지만 알고 봤더니 한국은 AP 제조 능력이 없었던 거죠. 한국은.
Well, it's not 100% true. They have power to make AP, but TSMC did not. Apple did not let TSMC to produce AP first.
맞아요. 처음에는 삼성이 만들었죠.
But Apple was aware that their IP, intellectual property, is getting leaked, and the leakage is very critical, because if the leakage happens, then Samsung might copy one of those and make their Galaxy AP more great. In that sense, Apple doesn't need to do that. So that was one of the critical things, and that became TSMC. Of course, it is very basic and very important discipline and ground rule that we do not compete against our customers. We do not. So from TSMC perspective, they have some kind of the fabs for AMD or Nvidia, or Intel was also their client, because the Pat Gelsinger said, because I've been to Taiwan in September recently, but I was in Computex this June, and what happened was that they were promoting their foundry, but the AI PC chips were manufactured by TSMC in Taiwan. So it's quite ridiculous because they have their own foundry, but the new chips are built and made in TSMC foundry in Taiwan. So it's something like that sense. So that made Taiwan to be the central of semiconductor and central of AI.
그러니까 사실 지금 전 인류 80억 명이 거의 대부분이 모바일 폰을 들고 있잖아요.
Yes.
예, 거의 3년에 평균 3, 4년에 한 대씩 소비하고 있잖아요. 거의 한 전 세계 유통되는 물량이 한 50억 대는 될 것 같은데.
네.
그 모든 물량의 핵심을 초기에는, 그러니까 모바일 혁명이 일어난 초기에는 우리가 대만을 하청업체로 알았던 거죠. 아, 쟤들은 반도체를 만들어주는 회사였어라고 이제 대만을 컴퓨터 산업과 이제 모바일 산업의 하청업체로 알았는데, 이제 모바일 혁명이 끝나고 인공지능 혁명이 이제 시작되는 우리가 이제 2024년을 살고 있는데, 대만이 소위 말하는 이 동북아 지역의 어떤 테크의 이제 소위 말하는 중심, 허브로 이제 도약하게 된 거죠. 그 말씀하신 대로 AP, 모바일 AP 대부분을 애플 거와 퀄컴, 그다음에 뭐 인텔 거 대부분 다 TSMC가 생산하는 상황에 이르렀고요. 그래서 AP뿐만 아니라 최첨단 이제 AI 칩 대부분 마찬가지죠. 예.
So recently, TSMC reported its Q3 earnings this month, about 2 weeks ago, and Samsung is still working on 3 nanometers, but next year they will be producing 2 nanometers, and beyond that, TSMC reported to its investors and the analysts who participated in the earnings call, they are right now working on 16A. So it means 1.6 nanometer fabs, and that will be happening. So in that sense, I mean, Samsung is focusing on super gap and how to make it more detailed and make it better. But right now, TSMC is working a lot, and also it's a risky for Samsung right now because they right now postponed their plans to build their factory in Taylor, Texas, and they did not get any order from Nvidia or AMD or Intel, or Apple, which is a U.S. company based in the States. So, you know, even you make your fabs and you made a fantastic lineup, it's not being built because it's not being operated, because, you know, Samsung is a private it's a public company, but since this is a company and a company should generate this revenue and make profit, basically under the capitalism, in that sense, right now they're in trouble in that kind of sense and that. But actually, Dr. Zhang, what I was trying to tell you was not only on semiconductor, as you know. So you said we were talking before this conversation, we were talking about the things, what's next with Taiwan and how it, because since I'm talking this in Asia Business Forum, which is more focusing on Southeast Asia, because you have some concerns that, well, we cannot only focus on Taiwan. Can you give me more on question on that?
그래서 지금 현재 모든 아시아 국가들이 관심을 갖고 있는 건 이제 AI 혁명에 어떻게 이제 동참할지에 대한 고민인 거죠. 근데 그 고민을 한국은 해결해줄 능력이 없는 것 같고 대만이 많은 관심을 갖고 있는 것 같아요. 원래 대만은 사우스바운드 폴리시라고 해서 동남아와 긴밀한 어떤 연관이 있었거든요.
Well, I'm not that kind of experts like you do, because I'm not that much keen in Southeast Asia. But what I felt from the technology and IT perspective is that one thing, as you see that United Nations is more focusing on sustainability, and you see focusing on one single thing is very dangerous in certain ecosystem. So that's why we are focusing more on diversification from United Nations perspective, and even a single country's tech ecosystem is going in a similar way. And that's one of the concerns that Taiwanese have right now. So I told you that the event was hosted by Taipei Metropolitan Government, but actual operator was Startup Island Taiwan. Do you know what Startup Island Taiwan is?
리틀 비 크게 해주세요. 스타트업 타일랜드 행사라고요?
No. Startup Island Taiwan.
스타트업 아일랜드 타이완. 예.
Yeah, that is an organization, and I had a chance to interview with the CEO of the Startup Island Taiwan. So there is a chancellor in Taiwan, which is a leader of that country, and they have directly under the chancellor, they have an organization called National Development Council. And under the National Development Council, they have some kind of the agendas which the nation should focus on, including the technology and startup. They made a dedicated organization called Startup Island Taiwan. The reason why, it's very simple. You told that Taiwan is just an assembly factory in 80s or 90s, and mostly because people criticize a lot on South Korean ecosystem on the concentration and the travel issue, something like conglomerate, but it's more family focused. Taiwan is more like the Chinese Sino culture, that the SMBs are mostly on the family-based business.
Yes.
So that was the good things in some part, because it's a family business, so they do not waste money a lot because the family need to survive. But from the scaling perspective, that was very limit of the Taiwanese economy to compete against South Korea or other countries. So that's why they made the TSMC, Taiwanese Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, which looks like something public and government company, because they want to make it bigger, because there are some people who are criticizing over chaebols or the South Korean type ecosystem, but from the Taiwanese perspective, they want something very big, because as you know that in 60s and 70s, Taiwanese economy was one of the big four developing countries' economy, including Singapore, Hong Kong, and South Korea. But Singapore or Hong Kong is just a small country, but in a big country perspective, they were competing each other and they wanted to benchmark the South Korea. So the reason why they are focusing on startup ecosystem is that so what I wanted to tell, especially in the Asia Business Forum today, was they want to diversify their tech ecosystem, not only focus on the semiconductor itself, but they want to make more unicorns, and they want to vitalize their economy with the startups or new fresh ideas. So something like KK Day, which is a travel tech startup funded by SoftBank Business Fund, or something like Appier, which is a MarTech company right now listed in Tokyo Stock Exchange. It's I don't know whether their performance is good or bad, but what I can tell is that they want to diversify. So that's why Taiwanese are working on that. So that's the thing I want to share. But you might understand, well, our population is about the South Korea's population is about 50 million people, and Taiwan is only 28 million. And the other thing is that like South Korea, the country is facing the low birth rate. So that means their domestic economy is not sustainable in that sense. Then why people are working on that? And what I selected Taiwan was trouble. This, aren't you interested on that?
아니 너무 이제 뭉뚱그려 말씀하시니까 대단한데요.
No.
타이완의 어떤 뭐 그 스타트업 생태계와 타이완의 어떤 가족 중심 경영도 얘기하시고 그다음에 이제 한국에 없는 어떤 다이버스한 어떤 생태계까지 에코시스템까지 말씀하시는데
Korea has more diverse. I think. Well, if we can talk here in Korean, I can talk with that.
제가 이제 처음에 이제 질문했던 거 핵심은
네.
한국은 이제 한국도 이제 IT의 어떤 기술적인 허브로서 그러니까 스타트업이든 어떤 IT 비즈니스든 아시아 지역과 어떤 연대와 협력 혹은 이제 뭐 기술 교류 혹은 이제 스타트업 교류, 시장 교류 이런 거 할 줄 알았는데 사실은 그런 경우는 별로 없잖아요. 한국의 스타트업이 아시아에서 성공한 사례는 그렇게 없거든요. 많이 없거든요.
So that's why I'm talking about 28 million.
28 million? 인구 때문에 그렇다고요?
The population, right? So South Korean economy is quite big, number one, and I think this is some kind of the habit that since the country is still in a habit of living in developing country culture, people are more keen in catching up something from the developed countries or the countries like France or Germany. No, not Germany, France. Or so people are more stuck in the luxury brand and they care what they wear and what they carry on the bag. Because since I was growing up in Switzerland, the European compared with the European, South Koreans are more keen than what they do and what they want, and they want to make something really modern and trying to say that we are better, something like that. I'm Korean, but my perspective is quite like European, so I feel that way. One thing South Korea did really well is that the something like e-commerce or something dedicated in internet or online environment, this is most advanced environment in the world. So compare with our economy size, South Korea's e-commerce market is number 5 in the world according to the Euromonitor. And Bom Kim, Coupang founder and CEO, he already says that South Korea will be number 3 after China and US and South Korea. So in that sense, this country is more dedicated in something and electronic and being shifted. That means the economic size of this market is quite big. So many South Korean startup companies are focusing a lot on e-commerce. Think about that, like Kali or Tmall or those players, Coupang, for example. It's very big. So that's why they are focusing on that. But Taiwan, number one, they are only 28 million and they face geopolitical conflict with China. And number 3, 28 million is not good for a single startup to become a unicorn. In that sense, they have to do something differentiated because South Korean startups say global a lot and the government has a lot of global programs, but I hope that the South Korean government or government related people doesn't see this YouTube. But no. Let me because this is podcast, I want to focus on that. So if you go to Japan, South Koreans are gathering all together, having their dinner together with Koreans and some kind of Korean Japanese and making something like that. So it's not expandable from my perspective. For Taiwan, it has 28 million and it's quite limited to work with something. So what they do is that Taiwanese, for example, the people who are working as babysitter or working as a, what do we call, I don't like this expression, but low class people, they're from Southeast Asia. And one thing about Taiwan is quite differentiated with South Korea is that South Koreans doesn't like Japan, but Taiwan is like Japan. They love Japan. So what happened is that for Southeast Asian startups who are trying to go to Japan, they are leveraging this country as a test bed. And for Japanese startups or Japanese tech companies who are going to Southeast Asia, which has their the Greater China network, like Philippines or Indonesia or Vietnam, they leverage Taiwan as a gateway to go to Southeast Asia. So I wanted to share that story.
알았어요. 일본과 이제 대만의 어떤 연결성이 있고 다시 또 일본과 대만과 이제 동남아의 연결성이 이제 강고하기 때문에 그들끼리의 시장 교류와 그다음에 또 시장을 바라보는 시각이 되게 넓다는 말씀이시고, 근데 반대로 이제 한국은 이제 그런 어떤 기회를 겪지 못했죠, 사실은. 예.
Well, it's to be honest, I want to express very concern because it's a squeeze between those countries in Northeast Asia.
근데 그 얘기는 이제 원래 많이 나왔던 얘기예요. 원래 중국과 일본 사이에서 한국은 스킬이 나올 수도 있어요.
Even Taiwan. I mean, you don't think about Taiwan.
그래서 이제 타이완 경제에 대해서 한국은 지난 이제 2000년, 10년 이전에는 그렇게 이제 위협적인 느낌을 받은 적이 없었죠. 그냥 그쪽은 중소기업의 나라고, 그다음에 한국보다 기술이 한 세대 뒤쳐져 있잖아요. 한국이 이제 삼성이 예를 들어서 20나노부터 3나노까지 오는데 과정에서 그 대만의 반도체 기업들은 늘 한 발 뒤에 있었거든요. 그래서 그 위협을 못 느꼈고, 근데 기업 사이즈도 삼성과 LG 같은 대기업이 대만에는 없었죠. 그래서 이제 한국이 일본을 2005년부터 2017년까지는 완벽하게 넘어서는 그 시기였잖아요. 그래서 대만은 우리가 이제 아웃 오브 사이트였는데, 현재 2024년에 이른 현재 TSMC의 주가는 삼성전자의 이제 4배에 이를 정도가 됐고, 그러니까 그 이제 삼성 그 TSMC 이외에도 수많은 이제 에코시스템이 있겠죠. 반도체 뭐 패키징도 있고, 반도체뿐만 아니라 컴퓨터 산업, 그다음에 AI 모든 산업에 있어가지고 소위 말하는 그 일본 대만 연합이 성립된 거죠, 사실은. 그렇죠? 그래서 약간 한국이 약간 좀 우려될 만한 상황에 아까 이제 컨선이라고 하셨는데, 저도 이제 거기에 좀 동의하는 편입니다.
So what do you want?
그래서 이제 궁금했던 건, 그 이제 대만이 어떤 그 아시아의 여러 스타트업과 기술 기업 혹은 유니콘들을 어느 정도 서포트하는지 좀 궁금해요.
Well, they're right now working in fund and deeply related with Japan is that.
근데 재팬이 꼭 나와요 거기서?
Yeah, because Taiwanese unicorn startups all got the investment from Japanese money. And number two, the Taiwan's cash phrase of their country to attract the countries from Southeast Asia is cool Taiwan.
네, cool Taiwan.
And the cool Taiwan with cool Japan.
사실 베낀 거군요, 서로.
No, it's not being copied. Actually, the reason why I'm trying to share is that they are more close than we see each other, because they every September, mid-September, they host Japan Taiwan Summit and in Tokyo Innovation Base, which is operated by Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and actually the Tokyo Metropolitan Government's startup is being operated by Deloitte. And what happened is that they leverage the network of Japan, the money from Japan, and the network of Deloitte, and they attract many Southeast Asian startups to Japanese market, but leveraging Taiwan as a test bed going into Japanese market. Because
그런 사례가 있어요?
yeah, it is because those startups those startups whom I met, like Sendit or Kapekkenangan,
백근항아.
because I met with the CEOs and the co-founders there, and they were considering to enter the Japanese market. So next year, Japan is hosting the Expo Osaka, and the Osaka Chamber of the Commerce International Division, especially on Greater China, visited, and he was attracting a lot of the Southeast Asian startups. And there is being the case, and that's the thing that I have checked from Startup Island Taiwan, how Taiwan is positioning between like gateway with Southeast Asia to Japan and Japanese startup to Southeast Asia, tech companies included as well.
그건 뭐 우리 입장에서는 뭐 그쵸.
It's very bad because South Koreans, yeah, it's very bad for us because South Korean startup ecosystem tried to enter the Southeast Asia, and many venture capitals were focusing on Vietnam or Indonesia.
특히 두 나라 그렇죠.
But what I felt was that we did not have any sandbox. The reason of the South Korean startups or venture capitals or government ecosystem was thinking too much conceptually on the Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asians, for example, well, our economy is, well, compared with Japan, because you see about the Northeast Asia, Japan is 2.5 times bigger than South Korea. Even they have experienced those 30 years after 90s. So from a Southeast Asian startup perspective, they have two options, which is going to Japan or South Korea. Even they love some kind of K-drama or culture. From a businessman's perspective, number is number, and they want to be more realistic. But they have two markets in their hands, and one market is a market they call Taiwan, where they have some kind of their Southeast Asian network so that they can test, and they have some kind of the test bed for soft landing to one of the big economies in Northeast Asia. Then which one would you select, and how Taiwan will leverage? It's like one thing I would like to share is that it's like a story. So you recently see some of the cooks and the chefs in Netflix. So if you go to let's say you love the Napoli's mafia, Naples Mafia's restaurant, so you want pasta, but the line is too long. So in that sense, you want to have pasta, so there is let's say some kind of fake restaurant, but their rating is over 4 stars, and there is a restaurant called Rome Mafia. Yeah, this is just an example. And there is another pasta, but you don't know, but it seems big. In that sense, you go to Rome pasta, right?
그 중요한 가지고.
No, it's not. It is important, you know. If you want this to be something like people's understanding what South Koreans or Southeast Asians to see, you are the Vision Forum.
그래서 제가 이제 베트남을 몇 번 갔는데 베트남에도 이제 뭐 공유 오피스 같은 게 있잖아요. 스타트업 행사도 좀 있거든요. 조금 있어요. 많지는 않지만.
They have fake web summit next month.
그 웹 서밋도 있어요.
Yeah,
베트남에도 이제 거기도 베트남도 이제 IT 문화가 이제 많이 있고 게임 회사도 많잖아요. 많은 행사들이 있는데 이제 지리적으로 한국하고는 멀지만 우리는 베트남하고 친하다고 느끼는데 그런 IT 행사에서는 베트남, 타이완, 베트남, 일본 행사는 꽤 많거든요. 많아요, 생각보다.
So
차별라든지 여러 가지 협력 관계들이 있는데 베트남, 한국 무슨 IT 그 스타트업 행사는 거의 없더라고요. 놀랐어요.
Very neutrally. I think you might get a lot of criticism from your friends, but from my perspective, I don't, because if you see the name Pico, there is anything related with Korea. Except for alphabet K, right? From my perspective, in Southeast Asia or in Asia, only Chinese and Koreans hate Japan.
우리 싫어하지 않아요.
No.
좋은 친구죠.
No. From Southeast Asian perspective, they love Japan or Taiwan more.
오케이, 알았어요.
So that's why.
네.
But right now, the image of the South Koreans are changing thanks to Netflix or those K contents. But I think contents like we love the movies. I think you and I are in a similar group that we love the movies from Hong Kong, like Choo Fat or those kind of the actors, right? But as you know, that the Hong Kong movie did not evolve that much, and that they went down, not like Hollywood. So I think, from my perspective as a South Korean passport holder, I think it is time to leverage not just K or something brand like that, something quite universal. I'm very realistic because it is very specialized, and entertainment companies are working like Rosier is working with Bruno Mars, and congratulations, you guys like APT, something like that. But it has to be more tactical and more detailed, and not to be keen or focused on K. I mean, something universal. It's just like, it's not more K-pop, it's a pop from Korea.
그러니까 사실 이제 한국 모델의 좀 약간 약점 같기도 한데요.
Yeah.
예를 들어서 한국은 이제 대기업 모델이 있잖아요. 한국 방송 콘텐츠 역시 마찬가지고, 우리는 이제 수출 모델에 이제 익숙한 거죠. 완성품을 만들어서 수출한다. 그럼 너희들이 써라. 쓰고 한국 제품이 좋아. 와, 훌륭해. 딱 그래서 끝나는 거죠. 그러니까 한국은 어떤 지역적인 혹은 어떤 이웃 국가들 혹은 약간 덜 개발된 국가들과의 어떤 에코시스템을 만들어 본 적이 별로 없어요. 그게 저도 이제 문제의식인 거죠. 그러니까 한국 반도체가 잘해, 혹은 한국 제품이 잘 만들어, 그냥 그걸로 끝인 거죠. 그러니까 이제 우리가 뭐 일을 같이 한다거나 혹은 어떤 생태계를 같이 구성해 본 경험이 없는 거의 문제인데, 저는 이제 TSMC 사례를 보면서 TSMC나 이제 대만의 반도체 회사들이 상당히 많은 물량들을 말레이시아든 뭐 싱가포르든 거기서 이제 소위 말하는 분업 체계가 돼 있더라고요. 그게 굉장히 인상적이었습니다.
That is true. So one thing is, let me, because I wrote the article, but I don't know who that is. Let me just look. So last week I was speaker here, South Sydney, and I was speaker, but I'm a journalist, so I wrote stories by watching the session from Canva, which is a $50 billion company, 40 billion US dollar valuation company. And the other one, because I was trying to find out the name, I have a bad memory. Pops Worldwide, which is a nickname of the Netflix from Vietnam, founded by Vietnamese American woman. And I met her, and she gave me a very important implication. The thing is that South Koreans are, why Chinese are getting criticized when they go to other countries?
좀 약간 좀 예의가 없다거나 거칠다거나 혹은 뭐 그런 거 아니에요?
No. Well, I think Koreans are also ruthless.
그렇죠. 한국도 마찬가지죠.
And the ruthless comes from not respecting the other's culture.
그렇죠.
So
프랑스도 그렇죠. 프랑스, 중국이 좀
I see that's why people are calling France as a China of Europe, because they are quite ruthless.
이게 그 중요한 거 아니고요.
No.
우리가 국가를 막 그렇게 막 심하게 하면 안 돼요.
No.
일반화는 좀 그렇지 않습니다.
No, it's perspective. So I'm sharing my idea, but the ruthless means that not showing the respect, and not showing the respect is
not이 아니라 less.
No,
okay.
not showing the respect.
Less showing respect.
No. I mean no.
그렇게 하지 마시라고 제발. 왜 이렇게 단정하지 말고, 방송이잖아요. 조심하세요. 조금만.
So So what I would like to turn off my mic. No, just joking. So what I see is that these people are not showing respect to their culture or way of speaking. The one thing is that they are not respecting the ecosystem. What I'm trying to tell is that let's show an example in Jeju Island. So, or Chinese construction companies when they go to Africa. So they bring the restaurant owners so that they can supply to their engineering and construction team. So actual money does not go to the local society itself. But for the soft landing, when they need the supporter of a certain country to be deep dive, they have to hire local. Pop's Worldwide CEO, she said, we hired our Southeast Asian team, all local, including the executives. But my idea why the South Koreans failed on their phase 1 is that they tried to leverage all from the Korean perspective mostly. I think it's very important because, so that's why I said not, because there is, if it is less, then they did not fail that much. So that's why I told them, of course I know this is the broadcasting and I want to give the credibility to Asia.
그러니까 사실은 뭐 중국이나 한국이 틀렸다는 얘기가 아니라 어떤 문화적 특수성이 있어요. 그러니까 예를 들어서
You have to respect the culture.
당연히 리스펙트 하죠.
No. The respect means sharing your pies with the local.
그 마찬가지예요. 뭐 그렇다고 뭐 서구권이 뭐 자기들 파이를 뭐 나눠주는 것도 아니고.
Of course they are
원래 이제 에코시스템을 만들기 위해서는 서로 양보와 타협, 컴프로마이징이 필요한데 특히 이제 IT 산업은 특히 그렇죠. 왜냐하면 우리가 모든 걸 다 할 수 없기 때문에 시장과 어떤 기술과 그 다음에 어떤 비즈니스 모델 간의 분업과 협업이 필요한데 사실 한국이 거기에 좀 약간 덜 익숙한 건 사실이에요. 우리 농경사회 출신이기 때문에 농경사회는 제 돈에 물대기가 있죠.
This is just an excuse.
그렇죠.
I think it's an attitude to be a big country. Like think about the Commonwealth.
그래요. 그 영영방이 성공한 예도 뭐 그런 걸 수도 있는데.
Because they did not make a direct colonies like Francophone countries like France.
그렇게 이제 또 식민주의를 또 칭송할 건 아닌 것 같고, 자 예를 좀 바꾸죠. 예를 바꾸는데 그 타이완의 이제 화교 네트워크에 대해서 좀 더 얘기해 볼까 해요.
Well, I just talked from 1 hour from conversation with Taiwan.
타이완 얘기죠. 타이완은 이제 대표적인 화교의 중심 국가이기 때문에 이제 동남아랑 커넥션이 좀 있기 때문에 그런 면이 있어요.
Yes.
한국 교민이 동남아에 이주한 지가 100년이 안 됐고,
yes.
보통 이제 50년, 60년 보거든요. 그래서 되게
They
짧아요.
have just Korean restaurants mostly. I guess so.
그래서 한국은 이제 막 그 코리안 네트워크가 생기는 중인데, 이제 홍콩과 이제 대만, 그 다음에 이제 하이난, 이렇게 광동까지 포함하는 남부 중국인들은 언어나 문화적으로 동남아랑 굉장히 친연성이 있죠. 그래가지고 비즈니스에도 굉장히 많은 도움이 되는 것 같아요.
It is. You pay the.
대만도 여기 베트남 역시 마찬가지예요. 베트남이 이제 대만과 친한 이유도 문화적인 친연성 때문에 그런 게 좀 있죠.
I didn't thought about the culture, but yeah, I agree.
그래서 이제 그 화교 네트워크는 특히 이제 동남아 지역에서 최근에 그런 IT와 이제 AI 이런 혁명에 깊이 관여하고 있는 걸 보입니다.
네.
데이터 센터도 많이 짓더라고요. 동남아 각국이 열성적으로. 그건 무슨 의미가 있나요? 데이터 센터는? 너 머리 끊기는데?
Well,
질문 바꿀까요?
no, because for data center we can talk about 40 minutes. It's very broad.
오케이.
It's a farm, and if you have electricity, any country in the world wants data center. So Jensen already says that it doesn't matter where your data is being trained. So, and one thing, if you go to Taiwan and if you take the flight not to the Xiongsan airport to Taoyuan, it flies by. Luckily, you can fly over the TSMC factory, and the factory roof is covered with the solar panels, and the coastlines are filled with the wind power plants. Because I think it's quite critical for South Korea, but RE100 is not just a propaganda issue. It's a really critical issue. I think Donald Trump, even if he becomes the president, he cannot change that because it's a big theme. So, in that sense, if a single country has a power to generate with its renewable energy and their electricity shortage is not that much critical, why not?
그래서 이제 그 데이터 센터는, 그러니까 AI 혁명의 바탕이 되는 데이터 센터는 막대한 전기가 필요하고, 그 전기는 그냥 일반 화석 연료 전기가 아닌 무조건 신재생 에너지 전기여야 해요. 그것이 바로 현재의 전 세계적인 어떤 글로벌 어떤 기준이 스탠다드가 됐거든요. 근데 그것을 만들 수 있는 국가들 중에 동남아시아 지역이 각광을 받고 있는 거죠. 그러니까 에너지를 그쵸, 화석 연료를 쓰지 않는 어떤 친환경 에너지를 만들 수 있는 환경이 동남아에 많이 있다고 보는 거죠. 그래서 이제 그런 데이터 센터를 뭐 인도네시아나 태국도 마찬가지고요. 말레이시아 역시도 많이 투자하는 것 같습니다.
Oh, they found that since the submarine network has been involved, and well, my personal experience about 13 years ago when I was in Korea Telecom KT, we had a project for consulting Brunei,
예.
Brunei, and the country was getting funded by Asia Development Bank, and the ADB had a project how the data center can evolve the nation's economy too much dedicated on oil and gas. And I think it was Brunei, but not only the country, but the other country like Indonesia or Malaysia or Vietnam or Thailand, and the electricity is very scarce and the resources are limited. So global big tech companies like AWS or Microsoft or Google, they want a data center in Southeast Asia because it's a hub for between the Northeast Asia and also Australia.
맞습니다. 이게 되게 중요한 포인트신데, 그러니까 현재의 앞으로의 자원은 전기죠. 전기가 핵심 자원인 거잖아요.
Yes.
예, 모든 전기 생산이 가장 중요한 자원이 됐고, 예를 들어서 라오스 같은 경우는 수력 발전을 하고 있고요. 전통적인 수력 발전을 하고 있고, 이제 해양 국가들은 이제 뭐 바다의 해류를 이용한다든지 아니면 이제 뜨거운 태양을 이용한다든지, 그러니까 이제 전기를 생산할 수 있는 전 세계적으로 봤을 때 가장 최적의 장소가 어디냐? 교통과 혹은 그 다음에 이제 교통 중요하죠. 교통과 그 다음에 네트워크의 중심에 있는 지역이 동남아시아라는 거죠. 이제 아세안 지역에 그래서 새로운 어떤 IT 역시 마찬가지로 이제 투자처로 각광을 받고 있는 겁니다. 이제 거기에 이제 말레이시아가 아니라 타이완 커넥션이 존재하는 거고, 이 타이완 커넥션, 그러니까 거기를 만들 때 쓰는 어떤 칩이라든지 어떤 생산 기술이라든지 그것을 이제 일본과 이제 대만이 많이 이제 관여하고 있는 건데, 당연히 한국도 거기에 많이 관여하고 있지 않나요?
Do I have to talk like diplomat or realistic?
우리 비즈니스인데 이건 리얼리스틱하게 해야죠.
I think South Korea is, to be honest, quite squeezed.
제가 알기는 뭐 인도네시아 데이터 센터를 많이 지어준다고 들었는데.
Well, of course, the Exim Bank might fund, but if you're an Indonesian government, there is, let's say, there is a JICA, or there is, and
Japan,
there's a JICA, and they have a Exim by K Exim, and you have to you will see the condition and what will be best for their countries, because both countries would like to fund the program, and they will select. But from my perspective, what I have done in KT was I did those ODA projects in African countries, and if the opportunity is quite scarce, the country does not have selection. But opposite, it's like Indonesia, for example. If a country has an opportunity from World Bank or ADB or like AIDB from China or Japan or South Korea, JICA or Exim, then it will be depend on the diplomatic power and the conditions in which this country can bear. Because if it is aid, they don't need to pay back. But many developing countries that faced that how the African countries or other countries who face the ODA program, and that has been burden to their countries in a long time. So I think the card and the selection is in Indonesia. And the reason why I said skis is that from a business perspective, if Taiwan is a single country, I think South Korea has more priority than Taiwan itself. But if the country is with Japan and the Sino network, which is broadly in Southeast Asia, then it's another story. So that's why I say the quote squeezed between the countries. But I don't know what the solution will be, because if the solution is really good, I don't need to write the article. I will say to you, Dr. Jung, that why don't we do the business together?
그러니까 우선 우리가 오늘 이제 타이완 얘기로 이야기를 시작했는데, 그러니까 타이완이라는 나라가 우리가 그렇게 강하지 않은 나라인 줄 알았는데 알고 보니 생각보다 탄탄한 네트워크와 어떤 소위 말하는 미래 지향성을 갖고 있다는 얘기죠. 그것을 아까 말씀하신 대로 그 네트워크, 그러니까 이분은 이제 일본, 동남아의 연결성을 주로 얘기하셨는데, 이런 산업과 그 다음에 어떤 지리적인 이점을 활용한 연결성을 통해서 타이완이 이제 열심히 자기 영역을 확장하고 침몰하지 않는 잠수함, 항공모함으로서 어떤 동북아의 어떤 지정학적인 포인트를 잘 잡고 있죠. 근데 한국은 우리가 이제 5,300만의 인구로 우리는 사실 모든 걸 우리끼리 혼자 다 해왔잖아요. 생산부터, 조립부터, 물론 이제 조립을 이제 많이 외주 주긴 했지만, 그 다음에 이제 디자인, 그 다음에 기술 개발, 한국이 이제 모든 걸 혼자 해왔는데, 이제 혼자 해온 어떤 경쟁력의 한계를 저는 요즘에 좀 느끼는 시기인 것 같습니다.
I think it's a limit to this country, and the culture which drove this country from developing to developed country, the problems are popping out a lot, and so that's why I don't like the case something, because
Case something.
this case something is very good. It's very good for marketing language for government officials. But if you say a guy is saying about case something, like the people who hate China express the anti-Chinese is that they are too much dedicated themselves. And I think case something has a negative possibility to become this country to be universal, because the model which is happening in Taiwan is that they're merging the Japanese economy and Southeast Asian economy, positioning themselves, because Taiwanese never say tea startups or tea pop, or have you ever heard that?
우리는 못 들어봤죠. 여기서는 약간 거리가 있다 보니까.
because they don't want to be in the center. They want to position themselves as a link.
or link, hub,
It's not hub. I feel just the gateway.
gateway,
Yeah.
관문. 관문이라는 말이 적합하지도 않지만, 그래서 대만이 강한 이유가 이제 사실 대만이라는 나라는 자원이 있는 것도 아니고,
It's quite similar like here.
예, 인구가 많은 것도
And
아니고,
they even have earthquake.
땅이 많은 것도 아니고.
It's just 1/3 size of South Korea.
그래서
It-
예, 동남아의 많은 인재들이 대만에서 교육도 많이 받습니다. 실제로 교육 받고 다시 돌아가서 그 공장에서 일하고. 말레이시아 대표적인데 말레이시아에 있는 저기 그 말레이시아 반도체 공단이 저기 말레이시아에 있어요. 대만 공단이죠. 그 인재들을 이제 말레이시아에 교육시켜가지고 다시 복귀시키는 과정을 지난 30년간 반복하고 있죠. 그 패키징과 후공정에 특화된 인재들이 많이 배출되기 때문에 TSMC의 후공정이 가다 뭐 이런 말이 나오는데 현재 한국에서는 이제 뭐 그런 숙련공이 나오기 어려운 상황이 됐잖아요. 현재 한국에서는.
I think it's hard, and I think I'm talking to you like a robot.
아 로봇으로 할 수 있어요?
No. Like the what I'm already saying about squeeze.
그런 노동.
Like a ChatGPT, I'm repeating myself as a squeeze because fundamentally the reason what squeeze happened in this country is that you said, Dr. John, that the South Koreans are working themselves. Of course, they give some kind of the low-level works to the developing countries like Myanmar, or I don't know, is it Vietnam, or first it was in China, but they are shifting their manufacturing plants to Southeast Asia. But Taiwanese, one thing I would like to tell you is that one of the big unicorns in Taiwan, I don't know what the name is, but they made a fintech startup, and the fintech startup was made by not Taiwanese, it's like one of the Southeast Asian oriented citizens, and they found a legal way to send their monies, which they have earned from Taiwan, and sending back to their home country. And in that sense, that made the opportunity to position themselves in TPV, total processing value, in Big 5 or Big 10, and that become a big startup, and they are trying to work on that to Japan, because if you go to Tokyo Narita International Airport, when you put your fingerprints inside, these days many Southeast Asian citizens or Indian citizens are supporting the Japanese immigration office, and they are trying to shift on that in that way, because if they just so to about 28 million, it's just half size of the South Korean economy itself, then there won't be that many unicorns. And as you know, Taiwan has very big mountains, which is over 3,000 meter height. So actually, if this is a Taiwanese island, the people are living around the coastline. In the center, there is nothing, only big high mountains. So it's not a good country to live in, to be honest.
한국도 이제 한국 기업도 마찬가지로 그러니까 인근 국가들, 인근 소비자, 젊은이들과의 교류와 그다음에 이제 이동에서 저도 수많은 비즈니스 기회가 창출될 거라고 생각을 합니다.
At least you have to deal with the people quite equal and part of the society. Otherwise, this will lessen the core competency of the domestic economy itself. More open, and it will be making this society more strong and strengthening partnership with Southeast Asia. It's not just a conceptual, it's actually happening around 1.3 thousand kilometers south from here. What's happening in Taipei?
이제 사실 마지막으로 한 가지만 더 이제 질문을 드리면은 이제 중국의 부상이잖아요.
It's not China, it's Taiwan.
아니 중국도 이제 중국 얘기 잠깐 해보려고. 우리는 삼성폰을 쓰지만 대부분 젊은이들은 이제 애플폰을 쓰잖아요. 근데 동남아시아 대부분은 이제 중국폰을 쓰고 있거든요. 중국의 어떤 IT 기업들은 이제 중저가 시장에서는 절대적인 우위를 누리면서 이제 한국 기업들을 압박하고 있어요. 현실이고. 근데 그런 측면에서 보면은 중국도 이제 소위 말하는 자기들의 장점을 사용해서 매뉴팩처링이라든지 가격 경쟁력이 있잖아요. 기술도 빨리 따라잡고 있고. 그래서 중국 기업들이 이제 타이완과 경쟁하는 시대에는 어떤 그림이 펼쳐질 것 같으세요?
The reason why I said squeeze.
스퀴즈예요? 아, 스퀴즈 좋아하시네요. 굉장히.
Squeeze because you have to diet. Well, the squeeze is that it's considering also in China because it's my personal experience. I had quite a lot of dinners when I was invited as speaker in Taiwan. And in Taiwan, I felt there are two people. The people who are very nationalist, that's Taiwanese, but half the people have two SIM cards. There's one SIM card that's based in China, and they love the Chinese smartphones. So I had a chance to forward Huawei and forwarding Oppo and forwarding Xiaomi. And those are high-end smartphones because it's more expensive than the ones from Samsung's recent high-end models. And they're really good. They're better because this is my main smartphone, Apple iPhone 15 Pro, but I also have the Samsung device because I have two phones. I don't carry that one that much in my country. But compare with, because I have Galaxy Fold, and comparing with the Fold from Samsung, my honest view was that Chinese smartphone was much better.
아, 그렇죠. 예.
It's much better.
A 시리즈보단 낫죠. 예.
Eh?
A 시리즈.
No, it's not A series. I mean, my
S
smartphone is
series.
S24.
아, 그래요?
High-end model. And I have two smartphones, and I was comparing with that, and it was better. So Samsung was driving its most of the revenue from what Dr. Zhang mentioned, A series, but the A series is right now getting the market share is being attacked by the Chinese mid and low range model. So they have compete in the high end model, but the problem is that 2/4 of the Huawei is much better. Of course, the South Korean medias in this domestic market, the Samsung is still number one advertiser, so they write very friendly article for Samsung Electrics. But from my perspective, in that sense, Huawei or those Chinese players have much better basis, and also even Taiwan has a geopolitical conflict with China, but as they are CNOs, so they have big fund. Half of the people loves the mainland people. So, and also you see the Foxcons, those Chinese factory, the Taiwanese factories are operating their manufacturing plants in Guangzhou.
그렇죠. 폭스콘도 있었네.
And one thing we have to, well, I think this is another story because I have my friends in Alibaba or like Techno's Gang Lu. He's my friend. He's a tech media startup owner. We communicate with each other. So what you have to say, this is the another agenda. So what Chinese are doing compared with Taiwanese is that recently China has merged 9 cities, including Hong Kong, in Guangzhou area, calling Greater Bay Area. So I thought that was something like a fake, to be honest. But the Greater Bay Area is the area where they want to make better than the Bay Area in San Francisco, and their economic value is 1.5 times bigger than that of GDP of the whole South Korea, and they have a lot of innovation. And since the Biden administration blocked many things to be exported to China, they're making a lot of innovations based on Chinese companies like Huawei or Alibaba or those e-commerce places like Temu. And these people are working on that. So that's another ecosystem. And Taiwanese, the half of the people who love China as well as their nations, they work a lot there because those guys, when we drank a lot. He gave me another business card, and the number was starting with not 50, 85 something. It was starting with 86, which is the nation number of China.
여튼 한국의 처지가 굉장히 옹색해지고 있어요. 그건 이제 확실히 현실인 것 같고, 이제 뭐 최근에 이태호 대표께서 이제 대만 다녀오시고 대만 칭찬을 뭐 어마어마하게 하셔가지고 오늘 한번 모셔봤는데, 사실 대만 얘기는 우리가 많이는 안 했지만 사실 우리가 뭐 반도체나 TSMC 얘기를 할 거 아니잖아요. 아니기 때문에 오늘은 이제 살짝 그 대만 분위기를 좀 여쭤봤는데, 그쵸. 우리가 너무 대만에 대해 몰랐던 건 현실인 것 같아요. 저도 대만에 대해서 그렇게 신경을 안 쓰고 있었어요, 사실은. 대만이 강하겠지 라는 말은 최근에 해본 것 같아요. 정말 최근에 했고, 실제로 강했다는 점에 굉장히 놀랬고, 그래서 대만의 강점은 어디서 나올까에 대해서도 최근에 몇 번 이제 대화를 했던 것 같습니다. 그래서 오늘 잠깐 이제 대만 얘기를 더 했는데, 다음에는 무슨 얘기 해주실 거예요?
Well, it depends because after 2 weeks I will be going to Middle East and I will go to Web Summit, which is the largest startup and tech event in Europe. And you know why Web Summit is quite important is that the founder of Web Summit is Paddy Groves. He's Irish and his breed is from Brazil. And this guy criticized last year on his Twitter that Israel should not kill Palestinians. So the Berg families, like Jewish enterprise, does not. No. This is okay. Everyone knows that.
Okay.
So he has strong connection with Qatar, and Qatar is positioning themselves as a Middle East Switzerland. So February, I was in Web Summit Qatar this year, and next year I will be there. I met a lot of Russians and Chinese, Iranians and Americans and Europeans, and I think it will repeat again in Web Summit as well, except for Russians, because European does not Russians these days after their invasion to Ukraine. But after that, I think I have something really interesting updates on China and Taiwan, because I will be participating in the Alibaba CEO's keynotes and Pinduoduo CEO's keynotes. Pinduoduo is the mother company of Temu, and also Shein, the new Uniqlo by China. So let's talk on that and let's see what happens.
일단 뭐 대화 주제는 그렇고, 그래서 오늘 이태호 대표님 모시고 대만의 어떤 아세안 커넥션에 대해서 약간 좀 브로드하게 다뤄보았습니다. 오늘 나와주셔서 감사합니다. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. Thank you.